Today we'll be looking at the roundup of business this week and the recent, Naira stability that we're witnessing around 1,300. Also looking at the all-share index just concluded, and also looking at the rebasing of the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, economy rebasing that they're looking for to implement by January 31st this month, at the end of this month. And then we're going to be looking at the inflationary measures and also get some comments too from the President's Committee on Tax Reforms. So we'll be looking at all of those today on today's edition of Business Point. So you just sit back as I bring you an update on the world of business locally. So ending yesterday, opening also today's market, the Nigerian all-share index concluded its trading section for yesterday, January the 23rd, with a decline of around 48.15 points, closing at 102,788.20 points. This represents a slight drop of 0.05% from the previous closure of 102,836.35, even as market volume saw a small increase. Trading volume rose by 0.14%, moving from 393 million shares to 394.3 million shares. The market capitalization held steady at 63 trillion naira, ending at 63.1 trillion naira across 12,160 transactions. Market summary currently looking and opening today is at 102,788.20 points, and then the previous ASI was at 102,836.35 points. The day change was at plus 0.05%, and then the year-to-date performance showed a 0.13% increment, and then the volume that was traded total was around 394 million shares. The market capitalization was still at the threshold of 63 Nigerian naira, and then looking forward and what we should expect, the market outlook, despite the day's decline, there's potential for the all-share index to test the 105,000 mark again. The positive of the fourth quarter results and a favorable investment climate could spark buying momentum in the upcoming trading section. So we're expecting to see a little bit of a threshold increment to around 103,000 before the close of business this week, and then with that same momentum, we're hoping to see that it's going to hit the threshold of the fourth quarter of 2024. That's coming into the new business week. As of from Monday, we're expecting to see the threshold hit around the 105,000 points. So while we analyze and look at all of this, we hope to see this repo effect and then see this bullish momentum continue. Though a couple of weeks ago, the markets lost a whole lot, around over 1.7 trillion naira was lost day of the week. So we're expecting to see this threshold and then this bullish trend continue into the next business week. So we'll be moving away from that. Let's talk a little about inflation rebasing, which has driven 2.49 trillion on Treasury bills, oversubscription, and expectation of rate cuts. The Nigerian one-year Treasury bill auction was oversubscribed to the tune of 2.49 trillion naira. Was driven by investors lock in on the current yield as they price in a rate cut after rebasing of the inflation rate. This led to a decline in the yield at the auction on Wednesday, that was 2 days ago. The yield on the 7.87% from 29.21% of the last auction. A fixed income analyst had projected in an early reports that the anticipation that stopped rates for further offer instruments will likely decline as investors price in rate cuts by the Monetary Policy Committee after the rebasing of the Consumer Price Index. The MPC meeting, which was to be held bi-monthly, has been postponed to February the 17th and 18th, 3 months after the last meeting was held in the month of November 2024. As authorities buy time for rebased inflation figures, the postponement to February buys the MPC time for new inflation methodology to kick off in January. That's after the rebasing has been done at the end of this month. Economic analysts argue that the GDP rebasing will yield an extravagant GDP growth number, and the CPI rebasing will downplay the inflation rate. In the new methodology, the proposed based year for inflation computation in 2024, the year was proposed to capture the structural change driven by removal of fuel subsidy on FX and also the removal of subsidy on FX and also PMS. Looking at those angles now, system liquidity at the deficit of 373.66 billion naira as of Monday was made even more daunting for healthy participation in the auction. However, inflow from federal allocation and federal government bond coupon payments of around 281.95 billion naira and the federal savings bond coupon payments of 0.56 billion naira are set to bolster the liquidity and sustain demand for bills at the auction. The Nigeria's high interest rate is also another topic for conversation. Looking at all of this now, the bill and the source of the weakness now is just based on the rebasing that is meant to happen. This has given investors more boost and more momentum for them to be able to look into investing in Nigerian economy. All of these principles are being put in place so as to be able to have all of this achieved. One goal here is meant to be achieved: Nigerian inflation coming down and then the GDP also growing by 5.5%. We'll be talking more on Nigerian high interest rate and then the policies from the MPC and how it has affected the inflation in the previous year and how that is looking to change in this year going forward. Just sit back, we'll be right back after this break. On Global Television,
the business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
officers have actually said that tightening the monetary policy is not the right avenue for curbing out inflation. All of these were concerns that were raised by Nigerians and different stakeholders when the monetary committee team had their meetings 3 consecutive times last year, and then on each meeting the monetary and fiscal policy kept getting tightened, and then interest rate was just hiking. Now, the president of the fiscal committee on the tax reform committee, Oyedele, has this to say. He says Nigeria's high interest rate is stroking inflation. Taiwo Oyedele, chairman of the presidential fiscal policy and tax reform committee, has presented a compelling counter argument against the prevailing narrative that increasing the monetary policy rate is a necessary measure to curb out inflation. Some have argued that production, basically, and having food items is actually what is going to help out curb inflation, not tightening the monetary policy, as the governor of the central bank says. So, still speaking on what Oyedele mentioned, according to him, the Central Bank of Nigerian monetary hike lasted from last year, fueled inflation, worsening the economic woes of Nigeria. Speaking recently, Oyedele outlined how structural issues in Nigeria's economy, compounded by policy missteps, are undermining efforts to stabilize price. He says the MPR, as far as he is concerned, was a factor pushing inflation up, not bringing it down. Oyedele asserted he explained that businesses struggling under exorbitant borrowing costs of 35 to 40% are forced to recover this expense during high price, thereby stroking inflation further up. The situation is worsened by Nigerians' undervalued currency, a point Oyedele passionately emphasized. He says he don't think that 1,500 naira to $1 is a fair value to Nigerian naira. And he also mentioned that he thinks that the naira is really and very undervalued, he says, arguing for a focus on recovery and stabilization of the exchange rate. Oyedele noted that enhanced transparency in foreign exchange markets, coupled with structural reforms, could significantly reduce pressure on the naira, improving the liquidity and also value. Looking at all of this still, and then the counter argument was still ongoing when he was still making mention of the fact that the firm need to make avenue, the Central Bank of Nigeria need to look for measures more on how to curb out inflation, because tightening the monetary policy is also not going to help out in this current situation with all the current back and forth going on within the central bank now and the fiscal committee. I think with the rebasing looking to happen at the end of this month, all of those issues now would be softened. Still further complicating matters, the manufacturers in Nigeria are still struggling with over 1 trillion naira worth of unsold inventories, a direct result of high interest rates and low consumer purchasing power. Oyedele called for a shift away from the bracket of the MPR adjustment and towards policies that addresses the root cause of inflation, such as FX versatility, inefficiency, taxation system, and lack of support for local production. Despite the challenges, Oyedele remained optimistic about the future, predicting that inflationary measures and inflationary pressures will ease in the next quarter of the year, that is this year 2025, due to the fewer external shocks. However, he emphasized that the need for fiscal discipline and transparency, particularly in government spending, if government spending is from the sustainable source like tax or resource revenue and are not printing new money, the impact on inflation is muted. He explained the joint comparison with other foreign countries known for their economic and robust. So, looking at this now, the chairman himself of the fiscal policy and also tax reform committee, presidential tax reform committee is also kicking against the fact that the monetary policies has been tightened, and also the hike in interest rate. Automatically SMEs will suffer. Nigerians will also suffer, given the fact that they wouldn't have enough purchasing power. So now the rebasing, now all of this boils down to rebasing. So when this rebasing does happen, then there's a high chance that there will be a significant change, and hopefully the plan to see Nigerian inflation come down by 15% would actually be actualized. But projections have said that the inflation is still going to go up in the first and second quarter, and towards the end of the third quarter of 2025, that is when we are expected to start seeing a decline. Now currently inflation is at 34.80%. Food inflation alone is on 40%. Then looking at it now, food analysts have actually projected and said that as of last year report reaching us that food items surged by 100%. Some items surged by 100%, and some surged for over 150%. So all of these things now are challenging, and it's also concerning for Nigeria. But now it seems that Nigerians are beginning to see, the light at the end of the tunnel, where Nigerian naira is seeming to appreciate to 1,300 naira to a dollar. This is a projection by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, projected a notable appreciation of naira to an average exchange rate of 1,300 naira to the US dollar in the year 2025, provided the country heads to an optimal stability pathway. I beg your pardon. The optimist focus is anchored on expected increase in foreign exchange earnings driven by higher crude oil sale, revitalized manufacturing output from the oil refining subsector, and improved agricultural productivity. With crude oil remaining Nigeria's largest export, stable global demand and enhanced local production are anticipated to bolster exports revenue and also significantly generate more revenue. In its 2025 economic outlook projection, the real GDP growth to soar to by 5.5% in 2025, contingent on the implementation of comprehensive stabilization of reforms. And then these measures are aimed to address both across sectoral and subsectoral specific challenges while enabling border-based sectoral growth. And they noted the economic group noted that this would mark a departure from the limited sectoral expansion seen in 2024, where only 4 out of 20 key sectors recorded growth rate exceeding 5%. The group said that such reforms would not only stimulate growth but also tackle structural issues that have hindered economic development. Now, with all of this, now we're expected to see a significant stability with the naira, which was actually projected for the year to be at 1,500. But we've seen other people project that said, with these current reforms that we have on ground, if it's all of them are being followed through, and then developing key sectors like agriculture and also developing the exporting aspect of Nigerian crude and every other sector, coming together to develop its sector, will be able to witness the naira stabilize at 1,300 naira. This has been the projection for the year. So with all of these recent developments now, it's seeming as if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 2025 budget for naira to be stabilized at 1,500 would be visible. And again, they will plan also for inflation measures to drop to 15% is also visible. But how would all of this happen? These sectors need to be developed, and all hands need to be on deck, and then policies in place need to be seen through, and when all of those happen, then there's a high chance that Nigerian naira will be stable at 1,300 or 1,500, and then also inflation will also drop around 15% rather, instead of 34.80%, which is currently. This is how much time will permit us to take on today's edition of Business Points. My name is Samuel Odi. I'll see you again as we talk more business. Bye for now.